Welcome in, everyone, to Stand4kind Talks and our Essence of Education series. Today, we have two former principals with us to talk about culture of kindness, relationships, and how they fostered those things with their staff, students, and parents. I'm Candy O'Lance, and my co-host is Megan Osmond.
Hi, I'm Megan Osmond, and I work for Stand4kind as well, and I am their community outreach specialist. And so we are super excited to be here with two of my favorite people, Allred and Kim Cazier. I worked for Alan for a short time, and Kim, I actually worked in his school, but just the year after he left, and heard all sorts of wonderful things about him for the whole time I worked at the middle school. And so I'm super happy to have both of these gentlemen here with us today.
Awesome. So, Alan, if you don't mind, we'll just kick it off with you. Could you just give us a little intro about, how long you were in schools and what you did, and just, a little about yourself?
Sure. I started teaching fifth grade in 1977 and taught in Blackfoot, Idaho for 3 years. Then they made me an elementary principal, director of special ed, and after 8 years there, I moved back home to Star Valley, where I spent 33 years as an elementary principal, and the last 3.5 was superintendent. I look smarter than that, though, don't I? To have been a superintendent. Anyway, I was in the profession for 41 years. Loved every minute of it.
Oh, that's awesome. We're so glad you're here today. And then next, folks, you might not be able to see Kim, but a little bit of technical difficulties, but that doesn't diminish what he'll be able to offer today. So, Kim, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Great. Okay. It's good to be with you, Candy and Megan. I came into the education field. I was a teacher for 7 years, both at the third grade level and high school. And then I was administrator for 33 years as an assistant principal, and then later as a principal of the middle school. And so it's been a wonderful experience being and seeing education in its fullness.
I bet you guys both collectively saw a lot of things change and a lot of evolution, and then a lot of things loop back over again in your career, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
So just to preface this next question, I was in a book club with some local people here, and we were reading the book Multipliers by Liz Wiseman, and it's really a leadership book. And I read the whole book, and I was fascinated with it. And then I came to my book club, and I said, I need to know if this works in schools. And then they said, oh, she actually wrote a book about education too, Multipliers for Educators. And I was like, okay, that's my next read. I got to read it. But then I asked them the practical question. Have you seen leaderships? And this was a whole bunch of teachers in this group. Have you seen leaders in education follow these principles in this multiplier book? And these two gentlemen's names came up. Yes, we have Kim Cazier and Alan Allred. Exemplified these kind of leadership. So for me, I wanted to drill down. I was like, okay, as much they're retired and they don't want to be on this webinar, but
Yeah.
That's true.
That's really very true.
I talked them into it. And so the first question really is, how did you do that? So what's the recipe for creating that kind of culture of kindness in a school where you become the kind of leader that people can follow and that they trust you and you work through those issues? Tell us just a little bit about maybe what your recipe is a little bit, or what you found over 40 years of being an administrator, what you found actually works.
Go ahead, Cam.
Oh, you want me to go first or you?
Accurate.
Well, the first thing I would say is you got to be understanding and caring. And I think that is the main culture for kindness. And with it, the collaboration will take place. You need to put in time. In other words, meaning coming early and leaving late on days. It's not a check in and check out with a time clock. The other thing that I think is important is be a good listener. Listen to the teachers, listen to staff, listen to everyone who is involved in the school system, bus drivers, custodians, whatever. And then ask them questions about their own selves, their family life, and listen of the things that they're going through, and then be concerned about them and how they're doing. And so I guess the main thing is truly care about them. Let them know that we're as a team together.
It's so important to know each individual in the building personally and what's going on in their lives. But first of all, trust is probably the biggest thing I can imagine that holds that whole frame up. When you lose trust, it takes a long time to build trust, and it takes just a second to lose it. And so say what you mean, be honest, build the trust, don't have favorites, find the positive in other people. It's so easy to look at others and figure out what's wrong with them. Probably more difficult to look at them and see what's great about them. And then build on that greatness. Let them know how important they are to the system. And I'm not just talking teachers. I'm talking the paraprofessionals, the aides, the custodians, the bus drivers. They're all very important in the whole system. And let them know that you care about them. I never had any trouble telling my staff that I loved them. And I meant it, and I think they knew I meant it.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the trust is really good, Alan, like you mentioned, because that's the whole key of working together as a team. You've got to trust each other and work with each other.
And they say you can't have favorites, and you shouldn't have favorites. But you're attracted to some people. It's easier to be around some than others. But the important thing is that your behavior does not show favoritism to anyone, nor your words, and that you're fair to all. And the other thing that I found out is when there was a dilemma or something we needed to go after, I found it important for me to come to the meeting not having the answer. I had some ideas, but I didn't have the answer, because when the answer comes from them, you're going to have a good answer, one that they will support and believe in.
So, what are the things that you feel, in your experience, contributed to distrust? What are the things that corrode that trust?
I think one of the main things is the gossip and negativism that can be a culture killer very fast. And putting others down, judging others' teaching styles within the building, or classroom management of others. With the staff, the best way to do this is by visiting with individuals and on disagreements. And when it was apparent that gossip or negative talk was occurring, we would make sure that we dealt with that, because it's a very killer for the atmosphere of the school. And I think the negative talk that goes on, many times it needs to be addressed in a positive way. Highlight the good. In other words, notice the good. And then when we have to do the disciplining or talking to each other about those things that are not appropriate, it's a great way to get to the cause of the problem.
That's a good point.
And
That's fascinating.
It doesn't take much to destroy the climate in a school, and the administrator could be one that destroys the climate. But I told my staff when they'd say how much they liked working at Afton Elementary, I would say, well, you know, it takes every one of us to make this a nice place to be. And so anyone could destroy that climate. And when that occurs, and I've had that happen, and it's difficult to deal with, but it's an individual thing. And as the leader, you just need to make sure it's not you. And too often, since we sit in that office, we easily think that we're the ones with the answers. We're the boss. Do what I say, you know, and that is a total killer of the atmosphere in the school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've lived that.
Mm-hmm.
You guys probably don't know. I was a teacher also for 10 years, and I've only been out of the classroom a couple of years, and I've had phenomenal administrators, and I've had, you know, and the big thing I saw was the trust piece wasn't built for the one that we didn't want to do anything above and beyond for her per se. We do anything for the kids because we didn't feel like the trust level was there, I guess. We weren't asked our opinions about things. We weren't a part of the solution. We were just told, like Alan was saying, hey, I didn't come with the solution. We brainstormed it. We figured it out together. So I've seen that. But I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to circle back to a couple of points that both of you made and ask you a question. At Stand4kind, we focus a lot on mental health and mental health of children, parents, whatever. And one of the things that Cam mentioned was about asking staff, to the bus drivers, to the lunch ladies, everybody about how they are doing or what's going on with them. And when you're talking about a staff of people, that's a lot of information. So, and if you know that there are a few of them that are really going through some things, how do you compartmentalize for your own mental health? You know, at the end of the day, it's now time for my family, because as educators, we spend so much time taking care of other people's kids. How did you kind of switch that and then focus on your own family, I guess? Either one of you can chime in if you want.
Well, I think what happens is it's a training process for administrators because what happens is you've got to be in control of what you're thinking about after you leave the building. Mm-hmm. Because some of those problems, they're tough, and a lot of times they'll go home with you. And so you've got to be in a situation where you're saying, okay, I'm going to deal with everything I can at the school, but when I get home, what I need to do is make sure I'm spending time there at that particular time. And some days are hard because you're faced with a lot of challenges. Mm-hmm. But one thing I've found out, that if you do the best you can always have another day to come back and do it.
That's good. So self-talk and being mindful of your own thoughts. That's good advice. Would you add anything, Alan?
Well, you know, I had several bad days that I felt like I brought it home with me, and I had to be careful not to do that. But for the most part, when you get home and you're involved with your own children and your wife, and you can keep your mind on things at home, it seems to become a habit. So when I leave the school, if I can, I leave it there. And most of the time you can do that. But there always, if there's an issue, someone's really struggling, I sometimes would, with their permission, involve my family in helping be part of the solution to that struggle, if that